Hey, welcome everyone to the Bot Podcast, where we talk all things conversational user interfaces and interview movers, shakers, and innovators. And today we are very privileged to have Barend Jungerius, all the way from Amsterdam. So Barend initially started out working for large enterprise companies in the business intelligence space, companies such as ING, and he did that for over 10 years before he went ahead in 2015 and started his company called Zeitkraft. Now, Zeitkraft is a very innovative software solution where you can essentially leverage your Facebook page, and very quickly you can sort of build a website that sort of takes images, content, and reviews, and it enables you to build a website very quickly with doing very limited things. And from there, in the last 3-4 months, Barend has started his sort of foray into the chatbot space. And really leveraging LinkedIn to its fullest extent to sort of build his influencer status. I'm sure you've seen some of his content on Facebook as well as LinkedIn. So Barend, without further ado, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you, Chet. Great introduction. I couldn't have said it better myself.
So before we get started, I always like to ask sort of a unique question. And you and I are friends on Facebook. So I see you're a very big Star Wars fan. Big question. Have you seen the Solo movie? And what do you think?
Not yet. I'm
Not yet.
Planning to go there with my son in a couple of days. But I have R2-D2 with me all the time.
Very cool. Very cool. Is that made out of Legos or?
It's the Legos. Yeah, it took me quite some time to build it.
Cool. How long have you been a Star Wars fan for?
I think since I was 8 or 9, so that's back in the 80s. And
yeah. So
same time I started to do some first steps on coding. So
yeah. So you've seen all the movies. You have a lot of the memorabilia. Very cool. I saw.
Yeah.
I think you were Darth Vader in it.
Yeah, it could be.
Well, cool. So let's go ahead and get started. How did you initially get interested in chatbots, and why was it something that you sort of moved to now, which you sort of do 100% of your time as your business?
Yeah, I made a simple bot a year ago based on my Facebook page. It was quite simple and okay, but it didn't really struck me yet until like 3 months ago. I started again. And this time I started to build something more extensive and interactive. And I was surprised by what I built in just a morning, because I compare it, of course, with web development. So
right.
Then the huge potential struck me. And I found my calling, so to say. I think I will be busy with bots for the next 10 years or even more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was curious if there was like any connection, to your previous website, because I saw in it was a very simple, elegant solution, right? And maybe with chatbots, conversation being a very, intuitive solution, was that sort of a connection, just how you think about problems and solutions?
Yeah, maybe. I'm a really pragmatic thinker, and I like processing, and I like automating them most of all. So yeah, automating conversations, that's the nicest thing to do at the moment for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what did the first chatbot that you made, what did it do?
I was talking to a business owner from the States about his website actually, and he had a tattoo shop. So he had a couple of tattoo artists working in his shop. So I was just thinking about an idea to get started and learn about bots by building them. So I thought, why not make a bot that can help people pick the right artists? So present them some of the previous work without knowing what's made by who, and then just select a series of 3 tattoos, and then a score comes out, and it says, your preferences are most suitable for Kale or Alec or whatever. So it's
cool.
a fun and quite simple thing, but
No, it's cool. I mean, so was like the primary pain point, just to get more inbound leads for that customer, or to sort of customize what they were interested in before they came in?
well, it never turned into a customer. I showed him the demo and he liked it, but he wasn't interested in bots yet. I had to explain what a bot was to begin with.
Yeah.
But I saw that all these websites had the same structure, like, yeah, this is our gallery of all our artists, and you can browse endlessly, but yeah, it's hard to pick something then. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's interesting because I think chatbots have been around for quite some time. I'm sure you're aware, right? And it's like only since 2016, 2017, right? There's all this talk, right? Maybe more so from the people building them than enterprise space. And, it seems like 2017, it sort of hit its peak. And then 2018, people now know what chatbots are when you ask them, right?
Yeah, it's going in the right direction, and it really exploded like 15 months ago, I think. I did a search on Google Trends on chatbots worldwide, and it really took off a year ago, and it's booming now.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But still, we are first movers. We have to explain.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think a lot of it, comes down to really educating the client on the benefits and, why they're even useful, right? So.
Yeah, and I also learned not to try to sell the idea of a chatbot, but sell what it can do. So, make conversion rates higher on your website, or make it more fun to select something, like with the tattoo shop. But when you start off with chatbot, people are thinking, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they might have some strange thought with chatbots from past science fiction stuff, but yeah, the general awareness is increasing, and we just have to keep on going.
For sure. Just like any other adoption cycle. Can you talk about like any of the other initial successes that you saw that like really motivated, where like Barend was thinking to himself, he's like, okay, I'm definitely next 10 years, this is what I'm doing, chatbots.
Yeah, so I saw the low amount of time it needs to develop something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, logically thinking, it will really be a big factor in taking off and becoming mainstream. And of course, I'm trying all kinds of bots and subscribing to a lot of stuff. But for example, a really neat, simple but powerful bot is from Lego, where you can just say, okay, I need to buy something for my nephew or niece. Okay, which gender, what's the age, and then you get a couple of suggestions, and you can click some more, and then you can of course right away purchase it in the Lego store within the bot, and it's not artificial intelligence, but it's just super powerful and useful.
Yeah, I was actually testing that bot a couple of weeks ago. It's fairly intuitive, and I think it's fairly efficient for what it does, right? Because if you're not at the store and you can't talk to the sales associates, what is like an easier way to sort of filter down to what you're looking for?
Yeah.
You're right. Although it doesn't really have any natural language processing, I think it's still a pretty good experience, right? And I think that's maybe an interesting point. It's almost like we still are trying to identify, as an industry, what are good use cases that are great for chatbots or great for voice, and I still don't think we've really, we have a framework for identifying that. So right now, I think a lot of companies and people that are interested are, every bot is good for this use case, right? But I think we're beginning to sort of see what is a good experience, what is sort of a bad experience. And I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people and tried a lot of bots. Any bots that you've tried other than the Lego bot that you really liked?
Let me see. Yeah, also bots for cinema, for picking a movie, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's key to keep in mind it doesn't have to be super intelligent, especially not when you start out as a company. Just start small and make something useful, and take it from there. And as long as you manage the expectations for the user. I also say in the beginning of my tattoo shop, but I say, look, I'm not super intelligent yet. My boss is working on that. But if you just follow my flow, and you'll find out I'm pretty useful and fun, and just tell it like it is. And the awesome stuff with natural language processing is also coming. But start small. That's important.
Yeah, no, I definitely have the same methodology when it comes to that. It's like, can we like build like the smallest unit of value, right? And then we can iterate from there, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost like we can, if we're using NLP, or even if we're not, we can sort of use the distribution of questions that come into the chatbot as sort of a compass to sort of identify, okay, these questions are asked a lot, so now let's prioritize this new feature in the next version coming out.
You can use the lean startup method.
Right, exactly.
And don't build stuff that will not be used. Exactly. Yeah.
No, absolutely. So I think maybe that's a good segue to, what were some of the initial challenges you've either faced with like bot building, or, just getting into chatbots yourself, whether, there was just no network of people you could talk to, or, difficulties on the bot building platforms that you sort of encountered?
I was relatively new in the scene, like a lot of us. So I like you mentioned, I decided to take a whole different approach to LinkedIn and use it in a very different way. So what I did was invite, I don't know, more than 1,000 people who were second-degree connections, and I filtered it on the keyword chatbot. And it turned out chatbot people are really chatty, and they are glued to their mobile or their other screens. So a lot of stuff came out. We met that way, I think, also. And I have a couple of partnerships now, and landed my first freelance job. And it's really going good. It's going great.
Great. No, that's great to hear. That's actually, why I wanted to have you on the podcast. One of my motivations was, out of all the other chatbot people and voice people in the space, no one was really trying to leverage the LinkedIn, or trying to leverage the other social platforms to really get other people's insights and really try to distill them down to something that was like relevant to the audience. So I saw that you were maybe are the best one doing that now. Do you mind talking about that a little bit more on, maybe how other people in the chatbot or voice space can sort of leverage or do something similar to what you did to get, I guess, in front of more of their audience?
Yeah, sure. I, by the way, made an email sequence, so we'll put the link somewhere, but to subscribe. Basically, I turn things around. I'm not going to chase companies and people around anymore. Not too much, at least. So what I just did was send invites without any introduction text. Just a plain hit that button and go to the next one. And then people started sending me messages like, hey, Barend, nice to meet you. I would like to have a call and see what you're up to, and maybe we can do some business later. So I thought, well, this is interesting, and let's keep on doing this. And then I was quite busy trying to schedule meetings on Skype or in real life here in Amsterdam or other cities in the Netherlands, and I had to automate it because it was too much stuff going back and forth. Like, can you meet next Thursday? No, I can't. I have I have to play sports. Oh, Friday maybe. That's not how it's supposed to go, and it was taking too much time. So I installed Calendly, and I thought, to succeed on social media, you need connections and content. And for the content part, I decided to just ask people, can I interview you? And then I'll write a blog post about that. So that's easier than coming up with all content yourself. You just prepare some good questions. And also for processing that interviews into a written blog post, I use some automation, a tool to transform speech to text. And so I realized I kind of created my own ecosystem of new connections and new content, and then it grows wider and wider, of course.
Yeah, you got to hit that 10K follower mark soon, right? LinkedIn, it's in the process.
It's in the process. Yeah, I doubled from 1K to 2K in 4 weeks. So
yeah, no, that was incredible, and much appreciated you sharing that information, to our audience here, and also your LinkedIn post. That was great. So I'm very curious, since you've had the opportunity to meet with a lot of these different people in the chatbot and voice space, what were the really interesting things or insights or interesting projects that you found that people are working on that you like to share?
So like many, I started out with well-known platforms like ManyChat or ChatView, and then you find out you kind of get stuck within their the boundaries of their tool. And via that same LinkedIn system, I met 3 guys who are building their own chatbot building platform, and they made a simple bot building language, which has a lot of advantages above drag and drop, which is also great. But with the drag and drop, I realized, I'm now copying stuff 8 times. So when I try to change something, I have to do it in 8 places. And that's the moment you really have to look for another tool, because then things are getting out of hand with maintenance in mind. So I met people who are building their own technology and offering the platform. I also met people who are actually building bots. And it's the space is growing so fast, and it develops really quick. So there's never a dull moment.
No, yeah, definitely. You maybe want to talk a little bit about the recent partnership. I know with that bot building platform, what was that, a couple of weeks ago or something? You and that company sort of are now working together?
Yeah, it's called Botsquad. And I actually went for a chat, but now I'm helping them more like a growth hacker, we called it, to acquire more users, because they build great stuff, but people will hardly come by themselves. You have to put in the work. And on their platform, I'm building a recruitment bot that takes care of the intake process, which is also something quite boring, and bots can make it much more fun and appealing. So that's pretty fresh. It's my 2nd week now officially with those guys. And I'm also talking with Cognigy, that's German-based SaaS company, and they built quite an impressive platform also, focusing more on larger enterprises and multinationals.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny because I've been talking to, I don't know if you know Derek and Andy from Cognigy or Cognigy. Not really sure how to pronounce the name, but I know that platform just got listed by Gartner in Gartner's recent analyst report. So it's definitely an interesting platform.
And they raised some funding so they can really move fast, and also opened an office in San Francisco besides Düsseldorf, Germany, where they're originated. So I will be one of the partners, and they asked me the other week, do you prefer making bots and be busy on the technical side, or more on the strategic side? And I said, I prefer the strategic side. Just look at all the systems, what information do we need, how can we extract that, and how can we make appealing conversations. And yeah, they were very happy with my answer because they noticed on their clients, in the companies they visit, that there's a lot of demand for guys and girls who can do that and sort of have the overview of what needs to be done and stuff like that. Yeah,
Definitely. I think that's sort of an emerging trend we're seeing in the chatbot space now in regards to platforms. You know, like initially we had all these like very disparate siloed solutions. Like we had analytics here and a bot building platform here and an NLP engine here. And, you know, I think companies like Cognigy, you know, they're beginning to, you know, roll all those components and reconcile them all into one sort of seamless platform. And I think the really interesting thing about their platform, you know, I was talking to one of the VPs there was, you know, your ability to manage all the chatbots in one system and be able to have chatbot handoffs and to facilitate that inside the platform. I think that's really interesting and, you know, frankly, the future. So the platforms models are definitely emerging in regards to bringing all the components together.
Yeah. And they also said, yeah, these big companies also have a lot of internal communication, of course, which bots can be of great, where bots can be of great use. So that's, yeah, the knife cuts both ways. You can make conversations better with your clients and potential customers, but also internally. So that's quite cool.
Right,
yeah.
right. So, you know, I'm sure you use like quite a few platforms. Like, do you have any like favorite platforms that you use so far? Because I know, you know, building them very quickly, you know, you could do something like Chatfuel or ManyChat, but I'm sure you've tried a bunch out now in addition to Botsquad and.
Yeah. I also tried Amazon Lex and made my first little bot on Slack. And it's cool to be able to use the Alexa technology, of course. Dialogflow is on my list, but I could spend the whole week trying new stuff, and you have to keep focus also. But I'm definitely keeping my eyes and ears open. And but at a certain point, you have to stick with something and decide, okay, now I'm gonna finish this project on this platform, and you can be shifting all the times.
Right. Yeah, it's like this is a moment where it's like place your bets, right? It's you got to pick with a couple platforms, or maybe if you really have a passion to build something in house, you can build your own sort of engine or platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's there. I feel like there's new platforms and new bot builders coming out every single day. But I believe within the next year and a half, there's going to be a consolidation definitely in the market. You know, we're going to begin to see, you know, who has really significant staying power, who doesn't, who gets acquired, you know, things of that nature. So it'll be definitely very interesting to see that.
Yeah, yes, and I already noticed quite some companies didn't survive the Facebook Messenger lockdown. So yeah, I'm composing a list of bot building platforms, but it's a very dynamic
Right,
ecosystem.
exactly. One day they're here, next day, you know, not so much.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a really interesting point. I think very timely too, right? Provided GDPR and all the privacy stuff associated with Facebook. You know, I did see that same thing too, where there's a lot of companies that were so heavily dependent on that one singular channel of Facebook. And then Facebook goes offline for what was it, like 2 or 3 months at least?
Yeah, it took some time.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, you know, switching gears a little bit, you know, back to some of the chatbots that you're building, what kind of companies would you like to do chatbots for, or are you currently, or what sectors are you building chatbots in?
Yeah, so I'm building something for the recruitment sector. I want to send out version 1.0 this week to a couple of potential clients. And I have no preference for kind of other sectors, but I prefer the large to super large companies like the multinationals.
Yeah, the mid-market to enterprise. Gotcha. So you're building that right on Botsquad's platform right now?
Yeah, and it has an LinkedIn integration, so you don't have to repeat all the stuff again. That's already on your LinkedIn, and yeah, it's quite cool.
No, that's very cool. It's very cool. So you're working on, are there any specific like market sectors you're going after in addition to, just recruitment, or that's pretty much your focus right now?
Yeah, and via the partnerships, I will just see what comes on my path and then take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so just in regards to chatbots, now that you played around with several and, you're building some of your own, have you ever used a chatbot that you hands down were just like, this is a great experience, I love this is awesome, or not so much?
Well, not on a daily basis. I think things are improving and we are getting there slowly, but a lot of times the conversation just stops and ends. You don't know what is expected from you as a user, and yeah, that's a pity if things like that happen. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, if bots are just built by the principle of keep it simple and start small, then it's bound to be a success, I think.
Definitely. What do you like, I guess, what do you see it as like the biggest obstacles with chatbots? Because, I think you and I both agree that I don't think we've had a great experience with bots, so the expectation obviously is somewhere, much higher than what we're seeing right now. So where do you see the obstacles that need to be addressed in order for us to get a chatbot or voice experience and be like, man, this is the greatest thing ever?
Well, yeah, the general awareness needs to grow, and that's in the process. Yeah, I think bot building people really have to think about what's the context. Is this person traveling or busy on his iPhone? And what's the level of emotions? Did something really go bad with an airline ticket, or is somebody just browsing a web shop or whatever, being totally relaxed? And also maybe gender and age and I don't know, educational level could lead to different kind of conversations. So the bots will be really dynamic in the way they have these dialogues. I think that's where a lot of potential is for improvement.
Yeah, no, you raise a really good point. I think context, I think is what you're talking about, being able to map that for specific use cases. I think right now we're at like 1.0, right? Everyone is like, or a lot of people or a lot of agencies or enterprises are sort of like, every use case is a good bot, is a good chatbot and voice use case, right? And I don't really think, I think they're downplaying context a little bit, or they're just not aware that's also important.
Yeah, because you don't want to speak to your telephone, to your iPhone, or to your laptop when you have people around. That's more for a private setting, like your car, or when you're working at home in your home office. But it's not for any setting a suitable solution. So yeah, that's really important to keep in mind.
Right. It's almost like, we need to be more, we need to adapt and adhere more to the user in the specific context versus just pushing something out there and saying, adapt to this use case, right?
Yeah, exactly. You should, as a company, not try to turn into a bot what you have right now in an old communication system like IVR.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to press like 18 numbers to get through different levels of a voice system of a customer care department. With bots, you have new opportunities to get the client right away where they need to be with some smart technical stuff. So yeah, some CEOs are shouting, yeah, we need a bot, and then they start building, but they forget to think and really, yeah, think twice before you start to build something.
Right. No, absolutely. I think it's, just being sort of careful at this point and understanding, what are the business outcomes you're trying to drive to, and understanding, have an understanding of what the context is, and have an understanding of the limitations of NLP, and what are some of the best practices emerging from a user experience standpoint, and, checking off all those things. And, I think there's just not a lot, there's not a great, set of standards that currently exist. But I think, the more work you and I do and other people's in the space, we can drive towards this, more concise distillation of what are the best things that we should be doing.
Yeah, we build and we learn, and the ecosystem is quite young. It's like when we were building apps, we were all building apps, after the websites, the apps came, and now the bots are here. And they will replace a lot of the apps and website functionality, but it are the same cycles. But I think we talked about it the other day. The cycles are getting smaller in time. Things are going faster. So yeah, they predict that within a couple of years we have more conversations with bots than with our other halves, right?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot needs to be done to get there, but I think we're getting there.
For sure. I guess speaking of that, of where the expectations lie, what are like some of the biggest misconceptions you see about chatbots right now? Whether that's from people you're talking to, in the chatbot space, or people in the enterprise space that hear about chatbots.
Yeah, that a chatbot can handle any conversation. Like I said, my tattoo shop bot is relatively simple, and people start to ask, yes, where are you from, and how are you doing? And I have not built that stuff in, so it's not there. And
Right.
So you have to manage the expectations, and yeah, a bot is not per se the best solution for any given problem, but it could be when done right.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess in my opinion, and please feel free to give me yours as well. I sort of see chatbots right now as an augmentation tool, in regards to being able to automate potentially smaller compartmentalized workflows. And if it's something that's outside of the chatbot's capabilities, then we can sort of transition that to a live agent, right? I don't think we're at that level of general intelligence where a bot can address everything, right? It's either we go deep into a subject or we're narrow, right?
Yeah, and second line human support is always will always be needed, I think, at least in the coming years. Don't totally rely on your bots. When the system should be able to detect when some conversation is getting out of hand or it's not going in the right direction, and then actually an agent can take over and provide the service needed at that time.
Right. For sure. Yeah, I think until we get to natural language generation, I think there's a lot of interest in that space. I haven't seen anything quite commercial ready. I think we can see examples of Tay, for example, that Microsoft put out. I think that will be really interesting once it gets to sort of a viable level from a technology perspective. But for the time being, a lot of human intervention is necessary, whether it's from live agent handoffs or training specific intents and sort of going through the analytics logs and things like that.
Yeah, there always has to be a human factor. You cannot just say, okay, bot system, now just go have conversations and make yourself better.
Right.
It's not that easy.
Not yet. Not yet. But, we'll see what happens in the next, 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you saw the duplex demo that Google put out, right?
Yeah. It's awesome and a bit scary at the same time.
Right. Exactly. It's like within the next couple of years, it's like, do I know if this is a real person I'm talking to, or if it's like Google Assistant or something like that? So
Yeah, but I saw a trailer of Westworld,
Mm-hmm.
and then this real human asked a bot or a droid, "Are you real?" And then she replied, "Well, if you can't tell the difference, does it matter?"
Right, right.
But it's a exciting thing. The years ahead are very exciting.
Right, right. No, I mean, we see like there's models right now for, mapping, someone else's face onto video, right? And then we also see models for, replicating voice from a couple of samples. So if you have those two pieces plus, natural language processing, right, and potentially natural language generation, I think we're going to see some interesting, if not scary, potentials from some of these technologies.
Yeah, exactly. And let's not think about the fake news that can be produced with this kind of technology.
Right, exactly. It's always going to be like the bug and exterminator thing, just like
Yeah.
malware and infosec companies. But yeah, that'll be definitely interesting to see how that sort of charts out. But I think some of the interesting stuff, Google and Microsoft are both deeming the new technology, full duplex or duplex, in the sense that we're not just having like directional conversations with chatbots. And I think a lot of the experiences these days are, I say something, the chatbot does something, and then that's it, right? There's often not a lot of bi-directional conversations happening. And full duplex, as they're deeming it, or at least Microsoft now, and now with Google referencing duplex as well, I think we'll begin to see a lot more real conversational experiences. So it's yet to be seen, though.
Yeah, and it's also getting interesting when bots start to communicate with bots.
Right.
When you, for example, you are looking for some secondhand item, maybe a piece of art, and you just say, okay, if you find it and it's between this pricing range and it's not at the other end of the world, you have my permission to buy. And then the bot just goes out looking on the internet and keeps you informed and maybe buy stuff without you interfering. So
Yeah. Or like talking to another bot that is a specialist in this area. Yeah, that could be really interesting experiences. So speaking of that, actually, I think this is probably a good segue. Personally, what is your vision, for the future of what chatbots are? Maybe not today, but maybe in like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years.
Well, a big part of our jobs are quite stupid, repetitive little tasks, and bots can take away all that stuff. So people can focus more on what's important, and because of that, we will be able even more to focus on the technological improvements. So it accelerates because we get more time, not having to think about the stupid jobs and do the really cool stuff and make take it to even the next level.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think those successive levels with chatbots. It's like right now, it's like I feel like we're at this sort of precipice. For the longest time, humans are always trying to figure out how best to interact with computer systems, right? And now we're at this level where computers almost start understanding, how humans just interact naturally, right? I mean, human language has been around for what, 200,000 years, right?
Yeah, we are definitely on a tipping point at the moment. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's like, if we can get past this stage here, and not just voice, not just natural, language, and then integrating that with all these other great technologies and enterprises value chains like, IoT, or, leveraging big data or stream analytics or things like that. I think once we can connect the dots, the experiences, personally, I think it's going to sort of end up being something like some of the scenes from Minority Report.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. With the augmented reality and holograms coming. Yeah, it will be super exciting.
Definitely. Just talking about this, that's sort of like the future. But I guess for today and, current times, what are some specific facts or insights about chatbots that you've either learned yourself through sort of trial and error, or you've learned from other people that are subject matter experts in the industry?
Well, I think first of all, people like conversational interfaces because that's how we communicate. So it's a logical thing to do the same with our computers and smartphones and etc. So yeah, it's bound to take over a lot of stuff. I almost never install an app, maybe one app a month, and I have dozens of apps I don't use anymore. And so why not right away get to the place where the people are communicating with their friends and family and now businesses. So yeah, for me, it makes perfect sense. And that's why I'm confident about this future.
Absolutely. So I guess to that point too, in addition to insights, have you seen like any best practices when building bots, for any new people that are getting into bots or things like that? Are there any things that you see specifically when you build bots, like you consistently do this certain practice or something? Did you see that it's working very well?
Well, first of all, really think about the requirements. So you pick the right platform to start building. And then, like I said, start small. And I think I always put some amount of humor in my flows. And I think that's really important to generate that feel-good moment that one has with the brand or the company or the whatever it is. And so you want your brand to be remembered positively, and bots are perfect for that, because you can people might think, oh, these stupid giffies,
Right.
It might look childish to people from outside this scene, but they do have a big functionality within conversations. So that's my advice. I gave it the other day. Somebody asked, can you check my bot and tell me what you think? And one of them, I didn't have that much to add besides, please add some humor to it,
Yeah, for sure. No, I always try to make sure to add those animated GIFs in there as well. That sort of falls on personality of the bot. I think personally, I think UX and UX as well as the personality component are the biggest things that people can focus on right now to make great experiences. It's like you can use all the technology all day, but if it doesn't have like sort of a personality to it or a behavior that is congruent with that target audience, it can come off very stale, right?
Yeah, you have to develop some sort of relationship with the bot, even if it's only for 15 minutes or less, so, and that's also the same with humans. If I talk to somebody who has absolutely no sense of humor, I don't have any drive to ask for can I do a project with you, or that's, for me, that's a no-go. Then I think that we're not on the same level here. So yeah, maybe that's another thing that the bot should be able to figure out. How much humor can I add in this specific conversation? That should be dynamically set also. That would be really cool.
Right. So it's like appropriate enough of humor not to be in the wrong scenario context. That's interesting. You could probably leverage maybe some sort of sentiment analysis, right? It's like, if they're very angry, don't use humor, right?
No.
Transfer them to a live agent. If they're in a good mood, add some more humor in to keep the conversation going.
Exactly. Yeah.
So something I had actually learned from my last podcast from Hans, he was saying always add a level of empathy in the bot too. And he was saying that a lot of people typically don't really think about that, because I think in a lot of task-driven bots, task-driven in the sense of what are the fewest amount of steps necessary to achieve some sort of outcome, people don't really think about empathy in a bot, right? But when we have conversations with people, that's almost paramount to the experience.
Yeah. I also listened to the podcast with Hans, and so he said, indeed, sometimes people just want to be heard, and that can be done even by a bot,
Right.
So in case of a problem, but it's not big enough to redirect to a live agent, the bot could really show some empathy by saying, "Oh, I'm so I feel so sorry that your order is not in there in time," and blah blah blah, and yeah, that's a good point. Don't try to be super efficient with the minimal amount of steps, because when a bot is built correctly, you can keep people talking to your bot for minutes. And when you compare it to how much or to how difficult it is to get some decent amount of people to watch a video you produce, it's crazy. I saw people are talking for 5-6 minutes to my bot, and I never achieved that with a video I put online.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's super interesting to actually like look at the real conversations people have. It's like some people, I mean, like you get the typical people that like want to swear at your bot or try to break it and stuff like that. But then you have like these conversations you see sometimes where people go like really deep with your bot, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's a lot of learning moments.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember the part from the last podcast I was talking about. There's the company out of Japan that does the hotels and they do train stations and airports, and
Yeah.
guys would ask it, where can I meet girls, right?
Yeah, a whole new requirement came up. They didn't be coming for the bot.
Right.
They quickly built some new modules for that.
Yeah. So something interesting, because I know you and Hans are both from Amsterdam. Is it just me personally, but I don't know if this is true, but maybe you can give me some perspective. It seems like there are a lot of chatbot and voice companies in the Netherlands. It seems like.
Yeah, I don't have the picture clear yet, but well, it makes sense because we also have a huge web development scene over here, especially in Amsterdam, and a lot of us are shifting from web to maybe web and then apps to bots. But yeah, it's quite easy to grow my network locally as well. And that's very useful and fun at the same time.
So I guess speaking of that, of sort of growing your network, what's like your sort of vision for, all the content you're putting out and, the people that you're talking to and the blog posts you're creating? Like, what's your sort of end vision of that as far as like an influencer is?
My end vision or my goal, yeah, my goal is to build trust and become a sort of influencer or how do you call it, thought leader. But yeah, so you have to produce content for that, like we're doing right now. And yeah, it's fun to do when you love the stuff that you talk about. So I'll just continue doing it, and also I'm advising others to do it. People are looking for a job and they have not produced a single article on LinkedIn. Yeah, they could really do themselves a favor by posting something and show off your knowledge and your skills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So before we end the podcast, what's something that sort of has kept you motivated? What inspires you to, wake up every morning and, contact 100 new people to talk to or build new interesting bots or, get on a podcast?
Yeah, I'm just a big fan of technology. So with this rapid pace chatbots are into right now, it's like I said, never a dull moment. So I haven't felt any need to motivate myself. it comes naturally. So that's very I'm very blessed with that, I think. Yeah.
Cool. Well, cool. Barend, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Make sure to check out Barend's Chatbot group on Facebook. I'll make sure to attach a link, and always be sure to check out his content he's been pushing out. It's a really interesting blog post on LinkedIn.
Thank you.
As always, stay tuned for the next Bot podcast, as well as Bot Thoughts I'll be putting out weekly. Thank you.